Welcome back to Kingdom Dads. We are back in action today. We're looking forward to diving into the topic of juggling the grind and saving your best from home. I mean, I think I'm bad about giving my best away from the house. You know, at work, I show up for meetings. I'm responding quickly to text messages, smiling at the guy going down the road and waving and trying to help out, even strangers. But then, you put a face on all day and you get the job done, and then you show up at the house and it's like, man, I'm exhausted. You're just kind of disengaged and distracted and really just drained. Yeah. And so I'm looking forward to diving into. So for me, it's going to be more strategies of what I'm going to start implementing over the next couple of weeks, because I'm terrible at this topic. And anybody out there, we are looking for a guest if you want to jump in and give us some great solutions. But I think we got some ideas to kick off how to get some control of this.
Yeah, man. I think this is one of the most currently relevant topics that I personally ever talked to and that we've done. When it came up, hey, this is what we want to talk about, I was like, yep, that rings true for the next 2 weeks or for the last 2 weeks. And I put out a poll on YouTube and around some topics that we could cover potentially, and this was by far the highest voted on one of all of them. And we know, talking to Tanner this week, we know it's something he struggles with because he can't even remember to put his hat in the car. Why don't you tell us about that, Tanner?
Yeah, me and my wife and my child, we're heading to Publix. And I was strapping Andy into the car seat, and I took my hat off because, I was trying to get her and she would take my hat off and all this stuff. So I just put it on top of the car just to avoid that. And I forgot it on top of the car. Made it all the way to Publix, made it all the way back. We were driving by, and my wife pointed at a hat that was in the middle of the road, and we were like, that looks a lot like your Kingdom Dad's hat. And then I was like, oh. So by the time we whipped around, by the time we internalized that I had in fact left it on the roof, we whipped around and somebody had picked it up. And I was a little bummed, but I told Marky repeatedly, I was just like, because I was convincing myself as well, because I was annoyed that, I probably did that for a reason, and
you're dropping a card.
Yeah, exactly. And
on the road.
And I was just internalizing that. And I'm rambling at this point. I apologize. But yeah, so fast forward a little bit that night, I guess Marky had put out a Facebook post that somebody had replied to saying, hey, yeah, I've got your hat. I can bring it back to you. So first of all, shout out to Jonathan McRae with Lucky Lawn Care.
Yes. Nice. Thanks, Lucky Lawn Care.
But I do have my hat back now. And now he said that he is listening to the show now.
Nice. So. Also, shout out to Marky for making a post about a lost hat. That was above and beyond.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, man.
I mean, these are good looking customized hats.
Mm-hmm. They are.
It's like almost 1 in a kind. 1 in 10. That's how many we hadn't made.
Listen,
show it off.
Here it is.
Tell you what,
Kingdom Dad hats. Maybe we'll have a site one day where we can.
Tell you what, first person to comment once we post this new episode next week when it drops. If you comment, you want one, I'll send you one.
Nice.
How about that?
Heck yeah.
Faux free.
Free hat coming.
There you go.
Awesome.
Let's dive in.
Yeah, let's do it. And so, back to the overall topic of just giving our best to work, giving our best to things outside of the household. I think it's a common thing among men, right? Like we're doers. We want to do things. We want to get things done, and we want people to see that we have gotten things done. And so it's so easy to get caught up in the grind, and then save seconds for our family, and that's just not how it's supposed to be. And so you've had a really busy week this week that you were telling us about, and so I know you're living this right now and trying to overcome. And so, what's going on in your world right now, Andrew?
Yeah, we're in that season anyway with a 5 and an 8-year-old, and my wife is going back to work full time for the first time in a decade. So that's a big shift, but we've also got both of our parents in the hospital currently for separate things, and just juggling work and transition there and all of it. So, and that kind of balancing is not uncommon for us in this season, as dads and as husbands, right? I know I'm continually talking to guys in our men's group that are juggling that. And it can be hard to keep our priority list in mind. It often gets flipped exactly upside down.
Yeah.
or it's yeah.
And at the end of this, we're going to give some ideas for things that we can do and you can do to stay on top of this. But, that's a good point. Your priorities, right? Because there's not going to be, I know as I was looking for like, hey, what are some good strategies we can present? What are some good strategies I can try to do better at this? Time blocking is a big thing that pops up if you're doing a Google search, and that's great, right? That does help, and that is one of the strategies. But at the same time, like, life's going to happen. Your days are going to be crazy, no matter how you plan for them to go sometimes. And so I think it does come down to what are your priorities, and really having that shift in your heart. What are my focuses going to be today? No matter what comes up, what are my focuses going to be?
Yeah, and I don't know, every time I think of this, I don't know why the food pyramid pops into my mind, but, if we're talking about the pyramid of priorities, we've talked about before where it should be God, ourselves, meaning our own well-being, our wives, our kids, then the church or our church, volunteering, things like that, work, then everything else.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because when I do a lot of time blocking as well, and everything I do is on my calendar in blocks of 15 to 30 minutes or longer. But when things get really tight, if we're looking at the priorities pyramid and it's God and myself, and yourself has to be, before then wife and kids, because if we're not well, you can't take care of them either. You're a sick person trying to take care of other people. But the first thing that I will cut out or I'll delete out of my block time is the time for God or myself. It's exactly backwards.
Absolutely.
And so that's some of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. So big takeaway there. Don't put your prayer life last, and don't put yourself last, right? Like so many times you want to do for others, you want to give to others, but man, I know everybody's heard this, but you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah,
It's
serving
true.
on empty.
It's true. How many times do we just power through?
Yeah.
And push through, and guess what? Whereas you think you may be pushing through and you're doing a great job on an empty cup. I mean, if you reflect a little bit, something's suffering.
Yeah.
Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's your time at home and your time together. And so, this isn't just something that we're throwing out because it's a struggle for us and it's a struggle for men in general. Scripture talks about this. Providing for your household isn't just a suggestion. It is a sign of spiritual maturity, and it goes deeper than finances. So jumping in, 1 Timothy 5:8 references anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's not just talking about finances. I think so many times we get caught up in, I need to go make money because my family needs X or my family needs Y. And it's so easy to come back to these materialistic items, but just think right now, what else does your family need besides maybe a new pair of shoes, maybe a new car, maybe a new thing today? Like, what do they truly need? Something that I feel like everybody's probably seen at this point when they're doom scrolling on Facebook, but it's the story of the kid wanting to buy his father's time. And so it's I'll share it real quick, but it's this dad comes home from work one afternoon or one night late, and of course he's exhausted because he's been working like usual, right? And his kid's up, probably, a bit after bedtime. The kid's still up, so the father gets home, and, he's a little frustrated because he's tired and his child's still up. And so immediately he walks in the door, and his child's like, "Hey, Dad, how much money do you make an hour?" And, immediately the dad's like, "Why are you asking me this? It's late. You should be going to bed. Like, that's really none of your business." And the kid's like, well, Dad, I just wanted to know how much do you make an hour? And so the dad, frustrated, kind of thinks through it a little bit, and he's like, I make $50 an hour. And the kid kind of looks at him sad, and the dad kind of looks back at the kid, and he's like, why does that matter? And the kid just kind of is asking, well, can I borrow some money? Could I borrow $10? And the dad's like, did you just ask me how much I made an hour because you wanted to borrow money from me? Go to your room, right? And the dad's frustrated. The kid goes to his room, the dad, just in this huff and puff, some time goes by, the dad starts thinking about, well, maybe I was too hard on him. Maybe he needed some money to buy lunch at school or buy something he needed, right? So the dad goes back in and he's like, son, sorry, I may have been too rough on you. Why did you ask for $10? And he's like, here, I'll give you this $10. And the kid takes the $10 with a big smile on his face and then pulls more money out of his pocket. And the dad immediately, frustrated again, is like, if you had money, why did you ask for money? And the kid, starts counting his money with a big smile on his face and hands it to his dad. And he's like, hey, Dad, I have $50 now. Can you come home an hour earlier from work tomorrow to have dinner with us? And it's just so like, I haven't been in that situation with my son, but you just think that we grind and we think sometimes we're doing such a good job just by getting after it at work and providing for our family. And it's like, what does our family really want? You know, what are our kids really, really asking for? Are we giving them that time that they need?
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because as your kids get older, they will ask you for time. My youngest definitely asks for time. Like we'll get home from school every day and we typically will go outside to the playground and out to the zip line. We've got a zip line in the backyard and she will say, Dad, spend time with me, hang out with me. And it's not because I don't spend time with her, but she's just voicing like she wants time. Hannah also last week, she had a field trip to the zoo, as you guys know, and she said, Dad, like work as much as you have to the rest of the week so you can take off Friday and go to the zoo with me. And so, and I made that a priority and did. I'm like, if they're voicing it, they need it.
And she remembers that.
She does, for sure. It meant a ton to her. And that kind of takes us into point one. I wrote down, a lot of times, and this is something I told my wife this week, but we find ourselves so busy with so many different things that we really can't focus on any one of those things or be good at any one of those things. We're just kind of treading water, checking boxes, but we're not giving our best to anything because we're involved in everything. And I know that strikes me a lot, especially after a busy day, because we want to come home and rest, but that's the first time we've had with our kids really since early in the morning before we dropped them off at school or whatever. If you get to see your kids before work, I'm fortunate I do. I take them both to school every day. But I saw a post recently that said it was two dads or two parents, and it said basically if your daughter comes up to you or your kid comes up to you and you're on your phone, do not talk to them while you're looking at your phone. Like set your phone down and make eye contact with them and focus on them. Don't ever make your phone more important than time on them. We know that can be difficult because like my youngest Eden talks nonstop. So like the amount of times I have to put my phone down is a lot.
Yeah.
She needs a lot of attention. But that's continually weighing on me. And since I heard that, I think about that a lot. Man, I just, I can be very self-conscious of, am I giving them my best when I'm so spread out?
Yeah. And that's something we're going to get in towards the end when we kind of come up with solutions for this challenge. But you're right. If your son or daughter is constantly looking for attention, sure, maybe that's a sign of you're not doing a great job giving them attention, or maybe that's just a sign of like they've always got something going on, right? And maybe it isn't reasonable to continually be putting down your phone or closing your computer, especially if you work from home, right? Like where's the line? And so, maybe it doesn't make sense to always be putting your phone down and giving them attention, but doing that time blocking type approach where it's like, hey, at this time, you and I are going to do something, or you and I are going to set this aside. That's something I've really tried to start doing with Pierce is, if I've got a really busy week, I'm going to look ahead and check the weather and see like, all right, what days he loves going on these walks, right? And so at least I'm trying to do this twice a week where we go, it ends up being like 3 miles because our house backs up to the greenway, so we can hop on his balance bike and we'll take Cade, our dog, and never fails. We get out. He's on his bike way up in front of me, having a blast, having a good time. But we get pretty far away from the house. And at first I was always a little annoyed by that, but now like he's gonna get tired about 1.5 miles out. Yeah. And what he's gonna end up doing is he's gonna be on my shoulders. I'm gonna be carrying his bike. I'm gonna be holding the dog leash. Yeah. But we're just gonna kind of be talking, and we're gonna be just hanging out, just bound to be talking about nothing. But I think that's a really good point to set aside that time, because that's what stands out in your kid's mind.
For sure. Yeah, I think if you're not onto yourself in that matter, I wrote down the note just to mention, if you feel like your brain is on a treadmill, like you'll know if you if you feel like your thoughts are just bouncing from one thing to the next and you can't calm your mind down or your thought life down, if there's no peace in your thought life, it's probably a pretty good indicator that you've got too many things going on or pulling you in different directions. I know it can feel like if I try to just sit down and focus, okay, I'm going to focus on just spending time with my kids, I can feel that mental pull into other things that I have to be very intentional not to drift into. So, it's just a good way to be on to yourself. So,
yeah. And going back to the fact that we get busy, right? And a lot of things do go on and a lot of things do occur around us that we're responsible for. And you don't have control over that, but what you do have control over is your priorities.
Yep.
Right. And your priority is going to be first and foremost on your mind. And so if you are making that time with your child a priority, or after work on your way home, if you are making home a priority, that's where your mind's going to be. That's where your heart is going to be. And so that is going to help you center. Something kind of reflecting back, God's first institution wasn't the church or the government. It was family, right? Yeah. Genesis 2:24 talks about a man should leave his father and mother and be united with his wife, right? And that goes back to that priority piece of God first, yourself second, your wife third, your kids fourth, then church, then work, then everything else. And I mean, I feel like that's clearly laid out over and over again in the Bible. And it's important that we do put that first in our minds and in our hearts. And it's not just like, oh, okay, I've put in my grind today. Now I'm going to go home because it's my place of comfort. It's my place to relax and go brain dead so I can recover.
Yeah. Well, I think it's tough too as a man anyway. Like, we have earnings and investments goals, and we live in an expensive area of the country down here in Tennessee. Like, it's very expensive, obviously, in this Nashville area. Housing is super expensive, so it takes a lot of income. And so I'm constantly on the lookout for side hustles, and I do a lot of side hustles. I do a lot of building and custom work and with woodworking and things like that. And it can be very easy for me to be like, but I've got this opportunity, and it equals this many thousands of dollars extra to meet these goals. And before I know it, I can overload that and over prioritize that versus, yes, I have this great home and all of these things and we're making our goals, but my wife and kids are having dinner by themselves or whatever.
That's a great point, because I feel like we've talked about multiple times in episodes of, like, we tell ourselves as men, like, once I make this much, or once I get this, or once I get to this point, then I'm going to spend time with my kids. Then I'm going to be satisfied. And it's like, man, you got a great house, right? Yeah. You've got a really good setup, but it's so hard sometimes to say, well, this opportunity's here. I probably shouldn't pass it up, and that's going to continue to come. And so, we hustle, we gain success, but really at what cost, Too often our families are just getting our leftovers, really.
Well, and I think they are for sure. And I think where earlier on in life, if a job paid, hey, I can go make side hustle for $250, it's going to take me 3 hours. Oh, well, that's, what is that, an hour? $83 an hour, something like that. I don't know. I don't have my calculator.
Yeah.
But anyway, that would be an instant yes. Now I look at, oh, shoot. Okay, what time of the day does it fall in? Does it cut out time with Hannah or with Eden or pull time away from Kel? I will do that all day long if it's convenient in a good window for family. But otherwise, it costs more than $250 of family equity than it does going to make that money. And so I just think you have to consider things on a bigger scale. I know, there are situations where, like, parents in a divided home, like if you've been through a divorce and you're like, man, I got to make the money to pay my rent. I'm doing everything I can do. Man, that is a hard situation to juggle. Because I know there's some people out there realistically that are doing it. They have to spend the time to get by.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what that looks like.
Yeah. And I mean, that's definitely a good point. Neither you and I luckily are in that situation. Yeah. And so, we don't want to downplay the fact or make anybody feel bad about, like, hey, I don't have that option. I'm not in your shoes. It's not like I've got a decent salary and then I can do more on the side. I am trying to grind. And so, for those folks out there, hopefully we've got some good ideas coming at the end. And some of that does come back to to budgeting and time blocking and what are you investing in? You know, if we look at, you know, Mark 8:36, a really good verse from that section of the Bible, but it says, what good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? You know, and I think that really speaks to, you know, as I was reading that verse, I thought back to this Titus 10 study that we were doing and reflecting back. And, you know, he's talking about all the different personalities in the Bible, right? And one thing he gets to is he's like, well, you know, when I was looking at, you know, how the Bible gives direction for this type of personality, he's like, I noticed in the Bible there's no clarification for the workaholic. And so, you know, as he thought around that, the more he thought about that is, you know, we celebrate that a lot in our current world, the workaholic who's meeting goals, getting things done. But, you know, in the end, he's neglecting something else.
Yep.
And so he's actually neglecting his family at home or neglecting something elsewhere.
Yeah.
And, you know, that really jumped out to me about, you know, what am I neglecting to achieve what the world says I should put first?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I want to get into kind of some tangible steps that we can talk about, but there's a couple more points I want to talk through before we get there. So, point 3, you know, we were at love requires intentional sacrifice, not just convenience. And I love this. It's such a good point. Because one thing I will say, I see a lot of guys who, let's take the golfer, for example. No offense if you like golf.
And I do like golf, so I'm on
Nate
your side.
likes golf. He's on your side. I'm not. I bought golf clubs at Tanner's suggestion last year and took lessons, and I think I still have 2 lessons worth of credit at the local club because I bailed after 1 lesson.
Nice. I can't wait to use those.
He was like, he was like, you a baseball player? And I was like, yeah, a long time. He was like, yeah, I can tell. I was like, okay, I'll see you later. Anyway, you know, I see a lot of dads who, hey, you work a 40 or 50 or 60 hour week, but I'm going to go golfing every Saturday morning for 3 hours, or I don't know. Golf takes a long time, it feels like.
And you know, that's what's kind of turned me away from it, especially around here, right? If you're going to a public course, like you might be gone for 6 hours by the time you get there, warm up, wait on every hole. And then, you know, if you're not, you're going to a private course where it's expensive and it's like, man, I don't want to play bad to pay this much money to play. So golf has got me in a tough spot right now.
And hey, you know, if your wife is fine with that, if you guys have talked about it, hey babe, like golf is kind of my thing. I know it takes a lot of time and it's expensive. Is there anything that we can be trading off? But if you're not having those conversations and you're going golfing after a busy week of work and leaving your family for half a Saturday every week or whatever it may be, golf, pickleball, I don't know. We play pickleball. It's pretty quick. So no pickleball hate there. But you know, I think that's something, one of the things I wrote down is there is a season where you have to put some things for yourself on pause. I'll give an example. Like I'm a big car guy. I always had muscle cars. I restore classic cars. I had a 69 Camaro and a 68 Barracuda before Kelly and I got married. I love cars. Now is not the season for me to be spending time and money on restoring classic cars. That'll come closer to retirement or later down the line when my girls are older and out of the house. But right now isn't the time for me to just be out buried in my shop every evening. Right. I would love that, but it's not the time. I got to put it on pause. And so those are some quick things. Like that doesn't mean that you can't do things you enjoy. It means you need to filter the things that you enjoy and cater them to where they fit within your family's dynamic.
Yeah.
In an intentional way.
Yep. Priorities are something we're going to talk about here in just a minute. And if you're sitting in your car right now, or if you're listening right now, name your top 5 priorities.
Yeah. Like 3 people just turned it off when I said the golf thing.
Yeah, so. They probably did. Come back, guys. Come back. But really, like, think about your top 5 priorities. What pops in your mind right now? Yeah. This isn't an exercise to think about, like, what sounds good. What pops in your mind? Right? And yes, you should be a priority, right? We talked about God first. Yep. You second. You should have a priority that centers around your needs, but they all can't, right? Like you've got to prioritize what's important to you. And if it's working in the garage, if it's golf, great. Like that's your you time, but your wife has to be in there, your kids need to be in there, your family has to, you've got to have some priority geared towards the family.
Yeah.
You just do, right? And And
Yeah, and I think a good visual is if you're lining out all those things, but you have 36 hours worth of tasks and priorities in a 24-hour day, they all got to shrink some.
Yeah.
It's like maybe you can't go golf for 3 hours. Maybe you go do something for an hour for yourself or half hour, but you also then have, those times blocked out. But
yeah, and that's where I was going next. Like, how many times do we build a schedule and it's like, dang, there's a lot built right here, but I can get it all done. Let's do it, And you start with your favorite things, and then you get to the things like you're not so excited about at the end, and it's like, I don't have time for those today. So you'd have to be realistic around when you're setting that expectation.
Yeah, man, it's interesting because you start with your favorite things or the things that have to be done that are non-negotiables, and so much of the time, like I know for me, for example, like reading the Bible is a priority, but when I'm not doing well, or when I'm feeling burnout or crushed or crunched, that's something I eliminate from my mind.
Absolutely.
I'm like, I'm just going to scroll this morning because I'm tired and burnt out. And it's like, God, why do we do that? Like, why do we eliminate the important things first?
Yeah, absolutely. And getting into our last point, it is your family is your legacy, right? Proverbs talks about a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, right? And that's not just talking about money. That's talking about character. It's talking about faith. It's talking about presence and love, really.
Yeah.
We did an episode with Doug not too long ago, and I don't know if this was a Doug quote or if this was a quote that he pulled from somewhere else, but I'm giving Doug the credit for this. But the quote was, someday your holdings will be in somebody else's portfolio.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can set aside a wealth for your future generations, and that's great, right? You want to set your kids off in the right direction, but we don't have a lot of control over how they spend that wealth. But what we do have control over is investing in their character, investing in what matters, And so that's something I have this week as we've prepared for this. It's like, what one thing did I do today to invest in my son's character, right? His mental well-being. It can be a 1-minute thing. Like, he wanted to show me something, instead of me saying, hold on, buddy, let me get this done first. I set my phone down.
Yeah.
I say, buddy, what is it? And I am engaged, and I enjoy that, right? Because your kid's learning, is he important or not, in those little conversations. I mean, they're taking away so much from that small conversation where you think it's just like, this doesn't really matter. I'll get back to you later because we're going to spend all weekend together, right? Yeah. We can deal with this later.
It's so hard too, because I know like 2 nights ago, my girls put on a play in their bedrooms where it was not at a convenient time at all. It was like 6 right after dinner. I had somebody come over to pick something up off Facebook Marketplace, a stranger I don't even know, to buy something for $100.
Nice.
But anyway, I was like, okay, I'm balancing this and this and this. Yeah. And they were like, Dad, come watch us. We built out this play. And it was really cute. But the whole time it was going on, I'm like, this is not what I want to be doing right now. And I'm like, so I say that, dads, you're not a bad human being for having to force yourself to intentionally sit through some of your kids' stuff.
Yes.
That's a very normal thing. Like, there are some of those like Betty Crocker moms and dads out there who are like, I love playing blocks on the floor with my kids. I like going hiking and stuff and building forts with my kids, but I don't love that kind of stuff a lot of times. It's like I have to force it and fake engage. I like really engage, but it's not my natural tendency. But they don't know that, and I do care about them so much that I will force myself to be in that moment and set everything aside. But
that's going to come up. But then also, that's a great point. Who controls your mind? Your mind is extremely powerful. Do you control it? Does your job control it?
Yeah.
Right? Like, who's controlling your thoughts? And if you constantly find yourself going back to having too much on your mind or too much to do, if you constantly find yourself being with your family and you're thinking about, I got to do this tomorrow at work, or thinking back in the past, like, I should have done things like this.
Yeah.
You're not controlling your mind. Somebody else is, right? And so, I mean, that's a key point of gaining control of your thoughts and owning your time and setting those priorities so you can own your priorities.
And some of it's setting boundaries. Like, we had a shift in the workplace this week, and where I've got a new boss. And one of the things we talked about early on, we were talking about how our days typically are structured. And I said, look, like, I drop off my kids every morning. I typically will take a meeting on the way and then get to the office around 9 or so. And then I leave before traffic picks up. Then I'm back on meetings. I've got global teams, so I talk in the evening. But I know there are some in the organization who, like, they will have a Monday morning staff meeting at 7:30 in the morning. And I heard one say this week, if you're not on it, you're late. And I'm like, that immediately tells me that you don't prioritize people's family time, because if you are having a staff meeting for a bunch of middle-aged dads at 7:30 in the morning, how do you think they're going to be with their kids in the morning? That's the time every single kid is getting on the bus or getting ready for school.
Yeah.
Like, I'm personally not okay with that.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Like, that's not a good example. And I would set a boundary to say, hey, I won't be able to be there because I drop my kids off every week.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And so, so we've talked about jumping into some application, right? And so how do we apply this? So a couple of quick takeaways we have for applying this is, first, we've talked about this multiple times, but know your priorities, right? Don't, and man, I've probably been the worst of this. I'm going to take the day as they come, and I'll just handle it as it shows up, and it's all good, right? Yes, that's a good mentality, because I guess you're avoiding stress and overthinking things potentially. But at the same time, if you're approaching your day like that, like, where are you going to focus your time? Where's your priority? What if something comes up? What's your game plan? And so sit down right now and think about your top 5 priorities this week. What are they? And not only what are they, but how are you going to affect them, right? Because the next step is, a lot of us know our priorities. The majority of us kind of have, family, work, whatever's going on. This is my priority for this week. All right, how are you going to affect that? And how are you going to implement time and make sure that priority happens?
Yeah, that's good, man. I told Tanner, we met with our financial advisor this morning before this, and the whole point of that meeting is around creating a plan and happening to life instead of life happening to us. And we're a little late to the game, I feel like, but it's so important. And I feel like this is along that same path. It's like, figure out how you are going to happen to your life instead of life happening to you. The other thing, guys, that I would just say before we wrap is, I know there are so many men who struggle with this, and we hear from several of you guys. We're starting to hear from more of you guys, but if there are other men who or who you're around, please share this with them. Like, share this podcast with them as a resource. That would mean the world to us, but also just it helps them, because there are just not that many voices out there.
Yeah, absolutely,
providing support and help to dads, husbands, and other men. So please 100%.
Do. And so so priorities, being intentional with your time, right? We're going back to building a schedule and a routine, being present, and then create habits that your family looks forward to, right? Yeah. And that's the last thing that I've got here. And we as a couples group are doing the habits of the household study, and something huge that we took away from that was a send-off for the family each morning. And so that's just a quick prayer about the day, right? It can be 5 seconds long. It can be a minute long. My wife's getting my son in the car, and she's like, "Hey, come out here." And so, like, they're buckling in the car, and it's like, "All right, we're gonna do a quick send off," and we pray for the day. Yeah. Or the other day, I'm in the office on a call just 2 days ago, and it's like, I hear my son and my wife trying to get out the door, and my son's like, "Dada." I can hear him. I'm on a call. I'm like, "Hey guys, I'll be back in 1 minute." I run out. Yeah. "Hey guys, let's pray real quick." It's a quick prayer. God, thank you for this day. Be with our family. Keep us strong. Love you guys. See you later. Right? Like, you've got to build a habit, and you've got to be intentional about doing it. Yeah. Right. And so the first thing would be, get your priorities. And then the second thing that I would say, really the actionable item that you can do now, is implement something. If it's 30 seconds long, implement it, whatever, and stick to it. Yep. And then build from there.
Oh, that's good, man. Those are good tangibles. I agree. Awesome. Really good episode today, guys. Good takeaways. We want to hear more from you. We will have an episode coming up soon. We're going to have a good friend on talking about financially leading your family and how to dive into that. So stay tuned for that. Nate, I feel like you had a dad hack to end on today. Is that right?
I have a dad hack to end on. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well, let's hear it.
So, we were talking about these walks I go on with my son, and it's like, we get so far away from the house, and I'm trying to bribe him to get back home in a certain time. And so, versus this bribery aspect. I mean, sometimes you're just gonna have to bribe your kid, right? Give them ice cream, whatever, give them their favorite food. But I'm really trying to do a better job of giving my son some responsibility, right? I think all of us, especially he's a dude, right? And we just talk about how, like, we're driven by task and succeeding. And so A new point is like, all right, we get so far away from the house. It's like, all right, buddy. So it's 5:45. We got 20 minutes to get back home. All right. I know you really want to throw rocks. So I need you to do me a favor. I need you to throw 5 rocks as far as you can. And then we've got to get the bike back to the house by this amount of time. And it's so funny because he'll act like he has a little watch on.
Yeah, he's like,
and he's like, Dad, okay, I'm setting my timer. I'm looking at my watch. And it's like, all right, let's go. And, we'll throw some rocks and then we'll get a little bit down. And I can tell we're starting to slow down. I'm like, hey, buddy, what time is it? He's like, oh, we got 5 minutes left. We better go, And so
That's good.
Giving him some ownership of that goal it really helped this week.
Yeah,
and
man.
so we'll see. I'm going to try to apply that to different things as we move forward this week and see how that works. I'll report back on that.
Dude, that's good. I'm gonna just second that I had a first time with Hannah yesterday. She came home and she was like, hey Dad, so I was thinking there's a book fair tomorrow or a spirit day or something in school. Rather than just ask you for money, I was just gonna ask you, like, I would like to earn this much money for the book fair. What can I do around the house to do that today? And I was like, this is winning.
Nice.
I was like, you can absolutely earn that money. Here are a couple things you can do. Now I'm like, she earned about $3 of that 20, but I'll take it. I don't even care.
You got to start somewhere,
Yeah, I'm so glad. I don't even care. It just made my day.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we've gone our time, so let's wrap up. You want to pray us out?
Sure. God, I'm grateful for this time today, Lord. I'm thankful for the men listening, and just for this platform that you've given us, God, to just speak and support and just speak life through your words into these men. And God, I just pray for the remainder of their week. I pray that as they go out, prioritize, juggle everything that's going on in their life, that you would just give them the wisdom and the knowledge of how to balance it all. Give them the mental capacity, God, and just the will to do so. We love you, Lord, and I pray for the rest of this day. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
What's up, Kingdom Dads? Thank you guys so much for listening in and watching today's episode. We are live on YouTube, all the platforms, X, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
All of them.
All of them. So many now. Anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Like, subscribe.
Yeah, guys, gals, thanks for being here. As Andrew said, like, subscribe, comment, be part of this journey with us.
That's right. See you soon.